mystery of the deep ocean. So, as we normally do, we go back to the beginning. And a lot of people are thinking, well, we're going to talk about the mystery of the deep ocean. What things are out there? Now, for the little blurb for this show, I showed this little crazy little thing that looked like half baby, half snake. Some people say it's real. Some people say it's fake. We're not going there. We're going to go back to the beginning. We always like to go to the beginning. So, that means we're going back to our good friends, the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki is always at the beginning. So, when the Anunnaki came here, remember, El was here. And when El left, everything was set. You know, what they did to creation, they got their Earth mission started. They was mining their gold and whatever. Okay. But this is something which is written about in the Sumerian tablets that a lot of people don't want to talk about. When El left, he put his two sons in charge. He put Anil over all of the surface creation, and he put Enki in charge of all of the creation in the underground freshwater ocean. What does that mean? See, we only know about one creation on the earth. There was two creations on the earth. We never talk about this second creation. Okay, and what do you mean creation in the freshwater ocean? And is there a freshwater ocean down there? See, this brings up a lot of things. Now, this was written 6,000 years ago. Most people are not aware of certain things, and we're going to talk about this. You know, I like to scare you. Okay, so people know that all over the world, if you want water, you just dig, and you can have yourself a freshwater well. And the only difference between drilling in one spot versus drilling in another spot is if you drill in this one spot, you only have to drill 20 feet to hit water. And if you drill in that other spot, you might have to drill 50, 100 feet to hit water. So people want to drill as less as possible. But everywhere you can drill and hit fresh water. Now, if you can drill everywhere below the land and hit fresh water, there must be, we hear about aquifers and underground rivers and this and that and everything, but you can drill anywhere on the land and hit fresh water. Maybe there's not a river down there. Maybe there's a underwater ocean down there. That's why anywhere on the land you can drill and hit water. Now, if I'm talking crazy, let's go back to something we all heard about, and I'm going to explain it a little bit differently. We all heard about the flood of Noah's day. God was mad. He wanted to wipe out all life on earth because all life was contaminated. And he put Noah and his 3 sons in the ark, and God closed the door, and it started to rain. And then the Bible says, which most people never read that book, the Bible says, and then the fountains of the deep was opened, and the water rose. What does that mean? See, we're thinking that though it rained and that's why the water rose. But it doesn't say that in the book. And then after 40 days and 40 nights, it quit raining. And it says that the ark floated on top of the water until the fountains of the deep was closed. And then the water receded. What does that mean? See, these things are written, but they have no explanation. Because, see, it was raining and the water didn't rise until the fountains of the deep was opened. And even after it stopped raining, the water didn't go down until the fountains of the deep was closed. And then the water went down. What scientists have now found out that exists, which a lot of people still don't know, this is over the last 10 years or so, that they've been finding these giant underground pockets of water. Some of these pockets are 60, 100 miles below the surface. And some of these underground pockets the one that's under Asia contains more water than which is located in the Pacific Ocean, which is impossible. How can there be a body of water underneath Asia that's more water than the Pacific Ocean? Because you got to think the Pacific Ocean is deep. It is wide, but the deepest part is only 5 miles deep. Some of these underground cavities that scientists are finding inside the earth, some of these caverns are hundreds of miles deep. But they're not that wide. They're these underground bodies. But we know very little about the interior of the earth. See, the earth is massive. If you was to go across the circumference of the earth is 25 miles in circumference. The earth is 8,000 miles. If you was to drill from one end to the other, it would take you 4,000 miles drilling straight down to hit the center of the earth. That's far, 4,000 miles. The deepest we have ever drilled on the surface of the earth is 7 miles. It's 4,000 miles to get to the center, and we have drilled 7 miles. Okay. We know nothing about what is below our feet. Nothing. Okay. There's nothing which is known. And a lot of things that was written in books hundreds of thousands of years ago, we're now finding that these things exist now that we still can't get down there. But what we're doing with technology is we can now, because of earthquake and seismic activity, and now with some of these, like some of these diamond mines and things, which a diamond mine is actually a fracture of the earth where things are being forced from inside the earth. Scientists now believe that inside the earth, deep down inside the earth, which was written about, Jules Verne wrote about this 100 years ago, that inside the earth there's giant crystals and there's giant diamonds and all this stuff. Modern science now believe that because these diamond mines, some of these diamond mines are stuff that is ejected out of the earth. And when you have giant fractures in the earth where you got pressure, where things are being pushed out of the earth, this is where we find diamond fragments. And if there's fragments, scientists think that inside there might be giant diamonds. And one cave in Mexico, we have found giant crystals. Okay. But Jules Verne talked about this over 150 years ago. And there's been books that was written very long time ago, going back to Necronomicon and all kind of stuff, that talked about the interior of the earth and things that people seen inside, and the earth got giant mushrooms and this and that and all this stuff. How did they know about that stuff a long time ago? They seem to know more than we know today. The only thing we know is that, the only time we drill inside the earth is looking for oil. Okay. But we know very little. And that's the earth. But in the ocean, see, the deepest part of the ocean is 5 miles deep. Okay. The average ocean depth is around 2.5 miles. We basically only know the top 500 feet of ocean. And this might seem amazing, but until 1947, we're not talking a million years ago. Up until 1947, we believed that all life in the ocean lived in the top 500 feet of ocean. And below that, the ocean was a vast desert that was totally empty. Okay. It was not until a French guy built a bathysphere, and he went very deep in the ocean, and we discovered things a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 5 miles down, and we was baffled, because how can things exist down there where there's no light, where there's no this, where there's all these giant pressures and everything like that? And there's multitude of life in the deep ocean that we know about. We're doing good, no questions, everything's going well. Excellent. So, This is just we know. But the earth is 30% land, 70% water. We have only probably explored around of the top, we're only looking at the top 500 feet of ocean. We have probably only explored probably 30% of the world ocean. The top. The bottom of the ocean, we know nothing. So let's talk about this little creature that, these things that people have been finding. What's been going on for thousands of years is there's a problem. Things from the ocean washes up on the beach. And for thousands of years, people been finding weird stuff on the beaches. Sometimes they find weird animals. Sometimes they find these things that look half man, half fish, half this, half that. They've been finding things even up until modern times. And if you look on, and we're going to do 2 weeks from now, because this is the problem with this show. On this show, I'm talking. On Encounters, I can show things. We're going to have an encounter show of 2 weeks from now, which is going to be talking about not only weird stuff that people have found in the ocean, but we've been told that fairies don't exist and that gnomes don't exist and these mermaid creatures don't exist and all this stuff. Okay. You should see some things that people have found and have collections of. Okay. Some of this stuff is just speechless, where it looks like a half butterfly, half person, a half worm, with a half, what this stuff. Now, when scientists get their hands on this stuff, if you find something on the beach and it looks strange, and you say, maybe this is a mermaid, so you call up the authorities. They're going to say, we need to test this out. They come and get it. They're going to say, it was just an abnormal whale. It was just this or that. It was nothing out of the ordinary. And you say, okay, well, can I have that back, please? No, I'm sorry. We had to destroy it. We had to, we can't give it back to you. We had to, we already destroyed it, or we're going to put it in a collection because we need to study it further. See, this is what they do. You never get it back. But some people, before they turn it over, take a picture of some of this strange stuff. Mm-hmm. And some of this stuff people have been finding now and throughout all of history is very, 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 very strange. And what we're going to do on this show tonight is we're going to talk about some of the things that people have been talking about. And they was told that this stuff is not real. Mm-hmm. Some of this stuff turned out to be real. Okay. And some of this stuff was known thousands of years ago. And today, we still don't believe that they're real. So, we're doing good. Yeah, everybody's doing good. Everybody's just saying hi. Everybody's quiet. And if you got any questions or comments, Lisa's here to help. I'll just keep on going. So, let's get into some meat of some things they have found. Okay. We all heard about these weird mermaid creatures. We all know that's by watching too many Disney movies. Yeah. Okay. We all know that. You've been watching those Disney movies and then you start thinking, you've seen a mermaid or whatever. Okay. The problem is they have found cave drawings of mermaid creatures. Things that look like half people with fishtails. Drawn on... This is on caves which are thousands of years old. Mm-hmm. They was talked about in books hundreds of years ago. Okay, and these legends of these half men, half fish people go all the way around the world. Okay, even which is weird. Let's talk about weird stuff. We say civilization started in the Middle East. Okay. This is where, we have Sumer and all of that come. They talk about who gave them all their knowledge. Okay. According to them, and what is written in the Library of Nineveh and all that stuff, you had something called the omnis that came out of the water. These half fish, half human people that came out of the water, and they're the ones who educated the people on how to build and how to do math and how to do this. And they always carried their water buckets, and they would not eat, but at night they had to return back to the ocean. Okay. That is so weird. Okay. Let's talk about the Dogon tribe in Africa. The Dogon tribe talk about something really weird. The Dogon tribe talk about something that's happened today. They said these flying shields came down from the sky. Okay. And they hovered over the land, and a wind came out and dug a trench underneath the craft that they filled with water. And then these beings from the craft jumped into the water, and they would swim up to the shore, and they would talk to the people. That is so weird. Okay. These people, we all heard of UFOs, but I never heard of UFO that jump in the water and they come to the shore, and they draw these people as half people, half fish, which is weird. And they even know where they came from. They say they came from the star Sirius. But not the star Sirius we know, Sirius A. They say around the Sirius star we know, there's another star you can't see, which is called Sirius B, which goes around that star every 57 years. And they live around that star. And those are the people that was talking to them thousands of years ago. Now, you know they've been smoking the local weed. Okay. Now, what scientists found out in the 1970s, that the star Sirius do have another star that goes around it. And that other star goes around the other star every 57 years. Isn't that amazing? Now, how would these people in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, know about that? Okay. Amazing. And they describe them as half men, half fish. Okay. You see what I'm saying? But these are just legends. Okay. Let's talk about another legend. See, we're just going all around the world talking about crazy people smoking too much weed and making up these stories. Okay. In the book Necronomicon, it talk about Syria. We know about Syria today. A lot of bad things are going on over there, okay? And it talks about the city of Damascus. Oh, that's very bad things going on over there. Okay, it talks about that city too. But it talks about how they was making steel. Because the guy in Necronomicon, the mad Arab, wanted to know where were they getting the steel from. Because Damascus swords was stronger than everyone else's swords in the Middle East. And they did not break, they did not rust. And he wanted to know where they was getting their metal from to make their swords. So he went over there. And what is written in the book is that they're saying this, no, you know he was doing too much local weed. According to the book, and this was written back in 700 AD, they was making a jewelry of gold and of silver and inlaying it with precious stones. And they would take the jewelry to the seashore, and they would change the jewelry with these half fish, half man, half fish creatures that would bring these giant boulders of metal out of the water, and they would exchange the jewelry with them. And these beings that lived in the water loved to wear belts of jewelry. That is so weird and so strange and so crazy. Right? Now today, we know that at the bottom of the ocean is giant balls, these giant boulders of magnesium that sits at the bottom of the ocean. They didn't know that back in those days. Okay. How could you make up a story like that? Okay. Let's go to Japan in the 1500s. Japan talks about how this lady came in a circular boat. You know those circular boats. You know what I'm saying, don't you know? We all see those circular boats that come out of the ocean. Okay. And the boat opened up and there was a lady inside. And the lady talked to them, and she was introduced to the the person who ran that little, back at that time, Japan was was split up in the little kingdoms, and she met the person of that kingdom and everything, and she stayed there for a while, and then she got back into her circular boat and she went back into the ocean. You know those circular boats just be doing everything. You know what I'm saying, don't you? Okay.
Okay, Mary has a question.
Yeah.
She says, didn't King Tut have a knife made of material not of this earth?
Okay, King Tut knife was made out of meteorite. Okay. Which has certain special properties. Because, what they was doing... if you ever held things like Moldavite or these things that are tactite or whatever, some of these metals from outer space have special qualities. And with me, if they're very pure, they make me kind of dizzy or whatever. And a lot of these things, they was thought to be holy or of God because they were from outer space. So his dagger was probably, since it was not of this world, quote unquote, it's probably very valuable. It was probably given as a gift, by somebody who was noble and whatever. Mm-hmm. But these things, people, see, this stuff goes back. We always believed that people in antiquity did not know things. But people knew things. Let's go to another story. Mm-hmm. Very strange. Let's go to Egypt. We all know Egypt. We got pyramids, we got this, we got all kind of cute stuff. Okay. But the people of Egypt say where they came from. They say, which is also written in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Long time ago, before Egypt was called Egypt, it was called the land of Kemet. And you had these... what is written in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth is that you had this land called Atlantis. Okay. And these people had lived on an island, and they was very powerful, and their cities was ran in crystals and whatever. And these people lived in and out of the water. Okay. We still don't have a definition. That's the reason, like in the movie Atlantis, we don't know what it means by lived in and out of the water. Do that means like they was half man, half fish, or what do you mean that they lived in and out of the water? We're not sure. Okay. You see what I'm saying? But these people actually are the people that came to Egypt, and they conquered the people of Egypt, and they're the ones who taught them how to build and whatever. Okay. And they talk about a lot of these. There's so much we don't know. There's so much we don't know. So, we're still back in the good old days before we go further. Remember, I told you, and we're good. Any other questions, right? Okay.
Good.
So, I'm just trying to give you some back information because a lot of people believe today that everything we talk about today is just caused by watching too much science fiction and reading too many crazy books and whatever. Mm-hmm. But how are these stories going all over the world? Because people have seen things. People have experienced things. And back again to Necronomicon, they talk about something called the Deep Ones. And the Deep Ones are these beings that live in the ocean. We still don't have a definition of what a deep one is. But these deep ones live separate from man, and they have their own civilization. Okay. And this is what they was trying to hint about Remember, everything is secret society. In the movie Aquaman, remember they talk about these people that live in the ocean and they live separate from us. This is mentioned in books thousands of years ago, that these deep ones live separate from man and they have their own civilization. They have their own everything. So are deep ones mermaid creatures? Are deep ones some kind of creature we don't know about or whatever? We have no idea. Okay. And, you know, in the movie Aquaman, which we hope doesn't come true, the purpose of the movie was to say they was trying to unite the two worlds. They wanted the world of the ocean and the world of the land to become one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that what they're secretly working on? Is that the deep ones and the ones that, and us on the land creatures will one day be one? Okay, we don't know about that. Okay, I haven't seen any cities, and they've been talking about, you know, they've been finding cities in the ocean for a long time. Mm-hmm. Like off the coast of Cuba, they found all kind of structures and pyramid structures which are very, very deep in the ocean. We talked before about Lake Titicaca. At the bottom of that, lake, hundreds of feet below the surface, there's all kind of buildings. There's all kind of stuff that is built in the ocean, and people see things coming and going from the ocean, and no one really knows what's going on. But hopefully, this Aquaman thing they're not really working on, because we know nothing about, to unite us with them. Maybe there's people that's working on that. They haven't definitely told us about that. Okay, we know nothing. So that is these creatures. But there's also animals. Let's talk to some of the weird animals that's in this deep ocean that they've been telling people for hundreds of years don't exist. For hundreds of years, which is written in books, going back hundreds of years, sailors have always talked about these giant creatures, these giant octopus that would come out of the ocean and grab a ship and pull it down. And these giant octopus had eyes as big as dinner plates. And they've been trying to tell these people for hundreds of years, y'all just need to quit sipping that seawater. And you get what I'm saying, don't you? Okay. And there's nothing like that out there. Today, we know that's not true. But they're not giant octopus. They're giant squids. And these giant squids do have eyes as big as dinner plates. Mm-hmm. And that's big. We think there's things that's bigger than the ocean than giant squids. We have a new category that we're now calling colossal squids. We don't even know what they are. But we're thinking that there's something a lot bigger than giant squids. We talked about this before. What happened to one of our nuclear submarines around a decade ago? It was in the deep ocean doing what they do, a mile down, 2 miles down, just minding his own business. Something grabbed the submarine, violently shook it and everything, and then it let it go. So when the submarine went to dry dock, because the nuclear submarines, they're covered with a rubber coating on the outside to keep the noise down so they can't be picked up by sonar. They have this very thick rubber coating on the outside. That's super expensive. The coating on the outside of the ship was all damaged. Like something grabbed it, and there's these circular marks on the... Now, to grab a nuclear submarine, do you know how big something would have to be to grab a nuclear submarine and try to swallow it and let it go? Okay.
That's scary.
That must be super, 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 super duper huge. Let's talk about another thing that happened. This was back in World War II. Okay. You had those German U-boats out there sinking everything. Okay, so you had this British ship out there. It was a British tanker. And this German U-boat came along and fired a torpedo and sunk it. And while the ship was sinking, the U-boat surfaced and it was watching the ship sink. Okay. One of the sailors on the boat that was sinking took a picture of the U-boat that was sitting out there watching them sink. Okay. And they was getting on their lifeboats and everything. Now, what is weird that people always said this was a fake photograph, that behind the U-boat, you can clearly see what appears to be a shark, which is bigger than the U-boat. You get what I'm saying? And people say, oh, that's just fake. They must have added that in. Oh, it's just the camera's reflection of the sunlight or whatever. Because sharks can't be bigger than a U-boat. We all know that. Shark's not that big. Now we're finding out that maybe that's not true. The first hint we came across is, underneath the ocean, now we have all these, oil drilling platforms. One of these oil drilling platforms they have cameras on them. And this shark came, and this was a drilling rig. An offshore drilling tree stands like maybe 80 feet, 100 feet tall. And this shark came swimming by the rig. It was bigger than the drilling tree. And this thing was massive. And they was like, wait a minute. That can't be a shark. Right? That had to be a whale. It couldn't be a shark because it's bigger than the drilling platform. That was their first hunch that maybe something's not right. Then a few years later, they got another hint. Okay. They was doing some underground sonar work where they have these little sonar things that look like a torpedo that they drag behind ships, and it's mapping the bottom of the ocean so they can look for oil or whatever and see what's down there. Okay. Something, and this thing is being pulled by a steel cable. Something grabbed this thing. And they fought it for like 2 hours, and they thought that was lost. It must have got tangled in something down there because it's like 2 miles deep. And they was almost ready to cut the cable and just say, well, it's lost. It's only $1 million piece of equipment. I guess we'll have to buy a new one or whatever. Okay, but then something let it go. So they pulled it up to the surface, and the thing was all beat up. But what was strange is in the wreckage of that side sonar thing, there was a tooth that was embedded in the thing. It was a shark tooth. But the shark tooth was bigger than your hand. Now, they know what shark tooth look like. And if you know the tooth, you can extrapolate what the size of the animal. They still don't believe that, because for a tooth to be the size of your hand, that shark would have had to been the size of a whale. And there is no sharks that big out there. Millions of years ago, there used to be sharks that big, but they're not around anymore. Okay. That's why they started making these movies the last few years about these mega sharks and these giant sharks. See, we have no idea of what's out there. Okay. No idea. Can you imagine a shark tooth the size of your hand? Okay. How big that thing must be. Okay. But sailors been talking about this stuff for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Don't go swimming in the ocean.
Don't go swimming in the ocean. Okay. Let's talk about something else. Since we was into the Navy earlier. Still no questions. We're doing good, right?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. The Navy has, the Navy's out there. We're playing cat and mouse. We got American boats. We got Russian boats. You got, Israel got one or two. The French, the British, So we're out there. We're doing our little stuff. Okay. Now, how they keep track of what they're doing is two things we're going to talk about. Is for one, what they try to do is keep track of where the other submarines are. In case there's a war or whatever. If something try to break out, we're going to have to take out the Russian subs, and the Russians are going to have to take out our subs and whatever before they can launch their missiles and whatever. Okay, now, you're in a nuclear submarine. You're cruising, minding your own business, 1.5 miles below the surface. You're speeding the big 30 knots. You get what I'm saying, don't you? And something 1.5 miles, 2 miles below you go past you going 100 miles an hour. That's probably not Russian. It's probably not Chinese. You just put it in what the Navy calls an anomaly book. They just note it in the book. Okay. And these anomaly books go back to the Civil War. And they've been writing down weird stuff, especially starting now that they got sonar and all this stuff on the ocean floor now. They just, all kind of stuff, these weird stuff pick up. They have these, okay, since we're on the Navy, I might get in trouble talking Navy stuff. Okay. The Navy put these hydrophones all over the ocean, everywhere, because every submarine makes a different sound. Okay, because they're, to make a submarine, I don't care if it's nuclear or whatever, it can be, there's no submarines that sound the same. So by putting these, instruments all along the oceans everywhere, when a submarine goes past, they hear the sound. They say, oh, that's that Russian submarine 138. Oh, that's the French submarine 218. They can track them. You understand what I'm saying? Because every submarine has a unique sound. Okay. Over the last 10, 20 years, we have picked up sounds. Nobody knows what these sounds are. Some of these sounds like giant monsters. And some of these sounds are so ridiculous. And some of these sounds are so, they don't know if these are, whales fighting or whatever, but some of these sounds are just of magnitude and of loudness. Mm-hmm. And when you got giant sounds like gurgling or something fighting, and it's coming from the ocean at a depth of 3 miles or at a depth of 4 miles, that's probably not the Russians. It's probably not the Chinese. Hopefully it's not Godzilla waking up. You understand what I'm saying, don't you? Okay. Okay.
Houston, we have a problem.
Houston, we have a problem. And this is another thing that's been written in books going back to Necronomicon. Remember, our good friend Cthulhu. This was written thousands of years ago. He's asleep at the bottom of the ocean. Okay. Dreaming. Dead dreams. Because the sky is poisonous to him. Again, Secret Society film. This is what they're showing in the movie Aquaman. That giant monster that has those tentacles. That's Cthulhu they're showing. Okay. He's supposed to be asleep at the bottom of the ocean. See, they have picked up all kind of weird sounds coming from the ocean, and they don't know what is going on, where these sounds are coming from. They don't know. And scientists are trying to identify these sounds because they know what a whale sounds like. They know what dolphin sounds like. Mm-hmm. They know what this sounds like. They don't know what the hell that is. Okay. And coming from a depth of 3 miles or 4 miles below the surface. Okay. We might find out one day. Hopefully it will attack Tokyo and destroy it. You get what I'm saying, don't you? Okay. We have no idea. And this is the problem. This is what this show is all about. Unfortunately, in today's show, we don't have a lot of answers. The only thing we have is a lot of questions. Okay. And since we're back into the Navy again, Several times the Navy have picked up something and they have tried to make it surface by sending depth charges and whatever, or they think it's a Russian vessel. And this one event happened back in the 50s. They cornered this object in the deep ocean, and they thought it was a Russian submarine, so they was trying to force it to the surface. And then this thing just come out of the water and go into the sky and just fly off. That's probably not Russian. You get what I'm saying? There is so much down there we do not know. There's so much. So we discussed a lot of stuff. We discussed stuff that the stuff that the Navy been seeing. We've been discussing what they're picking up on these sonar and all kind of weird equipment they having. Let's talk about what happened around a month ago. Okay. They mentioned this one time on the news. It was 2 or 3 articles. We have these boys that we're putting off the coast. You know, ever since we had that tsunami that killed 200,000 people, we set up a tsunami warning station around the world. Because if there's an earthquake in the middle, you know, what we want is that, you know, a tsunami give off a signature. And that wave is going to be moving below the surface at 200 miles an hour. We had these buoys that we was putting in the ocean that could pick up that wave passing underneath that would give Hawaii or the west coast of California warning that, hey, something very ugly is heading your way, right? What's been happening not only in the Pacific Ocean, but 1 or 2 other places, our buoys keeps coming up missing. Okay. And the one that they found, this thing was secured by a cable that was like, this cable was like this thick. And they found the cable. It looked like something took the cable and ripped it and tore it. Maybe that was one of those sharks, or maybe it was just a giant squid, or maybe, okay. That's scary. What could break a cable that thick? And you have a...
Sorry.
And you have... She's playing with my shirt. I got cat hair on it, and she's having a good time.
There's a bug in here. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. That threw my thought off. But anyway. Okay. Okay. So we're going to... okay. But anyway. So... Why are our boys coming up missing? And what would have the power? See, if that was the Russians or something, they would cut the cable, right? They would go underground, and they would just cut the cable, right? By using underground welding equipment. But the cable was ripped. What could rip a cable this thick and just rip it the threads and you take the buoy away? And why would a creature do that? Maybe it was in his way, or maybe it got tangled up in... But 2 or 3 of our boys have come up missing over the last several years. Okay. We got a few more minutes. Let's talk about some other weird stuff. Because we're doing so good. And we got a lot of people that's... Yes, that's watching. We got a lot of watchers out there. Okay, I feel like we're watching a lot. Hopefully those are all Navy people who is signing in. Okay. We have that Google. You know, we got Google Earth. Google got these satellites flying around taking pictures. You can zoom up on all kind of stuff. And I could go down and zoom up on New Zealand. And I could zoom in and do this and that. Okay. It's for fun. Several times on this Google stuff, they have taken pictures of very weird things in the middle of the ocean. Or this and that. Where... they're structures, or it looks like some kind of big fish, or it looks like some kind of big creature. I don't know what it is. What's in the middle of the ocean? You get what I'm saying, don't you? Okay, okay. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. It's just, it's just like this happens sometimes with those Google cars that be going up and down the street. Sometimes you don't want to be out there in your nightgown getting your newspaper in the morning and that Google vehicle just happened to drive by. Boy, you're going to be very famous. You understand what I'm talking about? Okay,
That's funny.
Okay. It just happens. Okay. And people have seen all kind of stuff in these Google images because the car is just driving around taking pictures of everything. Okay. And they're not warning you that the Google vehicle is coming to your neighborhood and you need to stay inside. Mm-hmm. And you're out there with your lingerie on and the Google vehicle just drives by and oops, you just became famous. Okay.
And our rollers. Yeah.
And your rollers, okay. It's all good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the type of stuff that we don't know. We only live, remember, the earth is 70% water, 30% land. Of the 30% land that the earth is 30% land. To make you even more scared, we only live on 30% of the land. So even on the land, we know very little of what is going on. Because we like to live along the coast. We like to live, it's just like Texas. Texas is 800 miles by 800 miles. And if you go to Houston, Dallas, oh, you're like a little ant. It's so crowded you can't even move. If you go to West Texas, you can just drive forever and there's just nothing out there. It's just nothing out there. Okay. Why is that? I don't know. Why do we want to force ourselves to live in that little tiny cubby hole and then we got hundreds of miles of nothing? This is what is wrong on the land. This is what is wrong in the ocean. We know nothing of what is going on. And unfortunately, as our technology is getting better and better, okay, we're running into things now. We're starting to come across this stuff. We're starting to, this is what happened to this one vehicle where, where they have these biospheres where you can, these people get in these little biospheres and they go down to the bottom of the ocean. What happened around a year ago is that one of these biospheres got attacked by something. As they got tossed around and whatever, they think they was attacked by a giant squid. And it could have crushed the whole thing if it was big enough, because it was probably thinking it was something good to eat. You know what I'm saying, don't you? Okay, you got to be very careful out there, very careful. And we've been out there in the ocean and we only fish along, we have our little fishing patterns where we fish right along the coast or right in these little pockets. But in the vast oceans, we know nothing. Mm-hmm. And we still don't know what these old ones are. And we still have no idea of what was written 6,000 years ago about this other life that exists in the deep underground ocean. Mm-hmm. But we have an idea. Just as I told you, we have no idea. There's something called glacier lakes. Glacier lakes are, the most famous of them is Loch Ness. Glacier lakes are very thin. It's like a cut in the earth. These glacier lakes are bottomless. They go down, some of these glacier lakes go down miles deep. In all glacier lakes, you see weird fish. Okay, and people get reports of weird things that they see in the lake. Because in those glacier lakes, they might reach down far enough where they touch that underground ocean, which is below us. And things are swimming from the bottom coming up to the top. Mm-hmm. Because in all glacier lakes, there are reports of these Loch Ness creatures that are like these very long neck creatures. Mm-hmm. You have those reports in Canada. You got them in the United States. You got anywhere you have glacier lakes, you always have these reports of these weird looking creatures in the lake. Okay. So, maybe we need to do a lot more investigating. So this, in this talk, I didn't have a lot of answers. The purpose of this talk was just to introduce you to the unknown. And we like to talk about how we know everything. Oh, we know this, we know that, we know there's everything out there we don't know. When it comes to the deep ocean, we don't know. But the good thing about the deep ocean today is that since we're putting cameras everywhere in the ocean, because we got to watch out for our oil rigs. So all those oil rigs got cameras on them. We're putting those with detectors all over the ocean floor so they can detect submarines. All of these things are picking up strange activity. Okay. And as long as this stuff stay out there, but I don't have any answers, and hopefully, one day, hopefully we don't, in the movie Godzilla, what made him come to the surface is when we started doing nuclear bomb tests. If you go to Necronomicon, well, Cthulhu is asleep. He's asleep because the sky is poisonous. He will awaken when the stars align and the sky changes. What does that mean in English? Okay. So he can't come up now because the sky is, it's poisonous. That means, he doesn't like oxygen. He's going to wait until there's a lot of See, we don't have the slightest idea and these things was written thousands of years ago. And this is even written in the Bible about, this pit that is going to be open and these little creatures are going to come out and start stinging everybody. There's so much we doesn't know. So, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. As I told you, in like 2 weeks, we're going to do a video presentation and encounters that's going to show some of these weird things that people have found in the ocean. Not only weird creatures, but some of these creatures we do know, like stingrays and whatever. But people, like the biggest stingray that ever been caught is the size of a boat. Okay. Some of these creatures are humongous in size. And fishermen over years, because they have cameras, take pictures of this stuff. And people find stuff on the beach, and you can argue if it's real, or maybe they always say, oh, that's a deformed whale, or that's this, or that. I'm just going to show you the pictures, and you can say whatever you want. Okay. My thing is to let you know, and you can make your own decision. Okay. But if all this stuff is fake, what's the point? Why would people be spending all the time and effort all over the world to fake all this stuff? I don't believe so. And these legends of these creatures that live in the water and come out of the water and talk to people and whatever, this is something which is universal and worldwide. That's why I believe it's true, because in my book, if something is universal and worldwide, and if you can find cave drawings of people half man, half fish that is on cave walls, maybe they was watching The Little Mermaid too, back thousands of years ago, okay? And maybe it's just another fictional thing. Or maybe they saw something. We never know. So, I hope you enjoyed our little talk.